Welcome to Positive Recovery MD. If you're listening, chances are you want to create happiness around you and thrive in your life. We're glad you're here and you've come to the right place. This podcast will inspire and motivate you to not merely survive your recovery journey, we'll give you the tools to build or strengthen your foundation to thrive and flourish in your life. Each week, we'll come together as a community to have authentic conversations around addiction, recovery, and what matters. Growth and progress, not perfection. All while developing positive habits for you to utilize in your life. To learn more, please visit positiverecoverymd.com to sign up to receive the daily positive interventions that we'll review, as well as gain access to exclusive positive recovery content available only to Positive Recovery MD listeners. All right, let's get started.
Hello, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another installment of Positive Recovery MD, the podcast that enables you to thrive, whether it's in recovery, at work, at home, in life. It just doesn't matter. We're here to enhance your well-being. Today, it's just me, your host, Dr. Jason Powers, with Stephanie Vieau. I am murdering your last name. How do you pronounce it?
It's View.
View.
Well, that's what everybody says. So you got it right, kind of.
Well, I mean, I'm close to Louisiana, and you're from what, the Midwest? You shouldn't have like a French-looking name, but
yeah. So there used to be an X. It's my husband's last name.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense. You should have a Viking name if you're from Wisconsin, right?
Yeah, I know. Well, we're Viking fans, if that helps.
Oh, not Green Bay.
Yeah, Jordan will tell you all about that.
Okay, gotcha. So Stephanie View is a 42-year-old believer, mom, entrepreneur, party girl turned sober, curious woman who uses passion and grit to motivate and inspire full confidence into other women through God and her honesty. Recently reconnected to her ex-husband, there is never a dull moment and forever a life full of adventure, growth, and honesty. Steph is a freedom fighter and truth seeker who loves this great country that we live in. A native Wisconsin girl, like many others, Steph decided to party instead of attending a four-year college. By the way, my mom graduated University of Wisconsin-Madison.
Nice.
Yep. That's why I'm sort of a secondary Green Bay fan.
Okay.
Which is easy to have a second team if you're a Texan fan. So anyway, Steph spent many years and endless nights blacked out using drugs and highly functioning, knowing there was something big out there waiting for her, which she is running 3 businesses from home. That's why I can't wait to hear about the bigness. But she's used her social media platforms to encourage other women to know their worth and produce multiple streams of income while mommying, homeschooling, co-parenting, podcasting, whatever, wearing many hats. It is important that she always keeps her audience in the know no matter what season of life she is in, which I love. And I've listened to some of her podcasts, and I got to tell you, I feel inadequate that I'm not a woman with, mommy thing, but it's so empowering if that's your gig. So 3 unique things about Steph. She has 16 tattoos. Is it still 16, or did you get one more since you wrote this?
I mean, I have a new one. I'd have to count.
Okay. If you have to count, it's too many. I'm just kidding. I have 4. Anyway, I have battled with the decision if I should be fully sober for at least 10 years. I got to tell you, that piqued my curiosity. Are you sober now? Are you still debating kind of what happened? But we'll get into that in a second.
Yeah. Why
don't you just sort of begin by telling us what happened? Like, we kind of go over your story, right? So what was it like?
So, Wisconsin girl, grew up in the bar on the weekends with my dad, right? Started drinking early. So my 15th birthday, I went out with my friends and I drank 3 40s and I clearly was wasted, right? Came home, tried to sneak into my room without, my parents knowing, and got super sick and had to wake up and mow the lawn. We had like a huge lawn and stuff like that. And then it just didn't ever stop from there, really. So that should have been a lesson for a lot of kids. It probably was, but for me, it was not. Yeah. I, smoked weed, skipped school, the whole 9. When I was like a young kid, my parents were divorced young, but I had an amazing family and support system and all of that good stuff. But I was always probably older than my age and very curious and, all of those kinds of things. And so 15th birthday kind of just kicked it off, and then it just spiraled from there. I was raped when I was 16 years old, and for many, many, many years, more recently, like in this sober curious journey, if you will, it kind of was like, well, what happened? Like, was it something that happened to me? Or was it the drinking that caused all of the problems that kept all of the things going? Right. And to be honest, I think it just was a combination of both. Like, I think nobody ever really figures that out, or, it takes a long time to figure that out. So I started bartending young instead of going to school. I could have went to a private school and should have got the 4-year degree. And, my family, they're all very successful in their degrees and stuff like that. And that just was not appealing to me. I made good money. I liked to party, and I went all in. Right. So.
Okay, let's pick up where you went all in. You didn't like go to school, you made a lot of money. I want to talk about the assault, the sexual assault, because I thought you were going to answer your own question. And you know what? I'm curious. I'm interested because you did in the way that threw it back out in the ether, right? I'm assuming that you were in either a blackout or you don't know all the pieces, right?
I was not. I was sober when I was assaulted.
You were?
Yeah.
So, okay, first of all, I just want to say, like, nobody, drunk or not, deserves that. And I know you agree with me. I know you're not saying any. So just first of all, like, get that out of the way. Even if you were drunk, even if you were in a blackout, like, that is just a violation, wrong on all levels. Did your drinking put you in the frame of mind where you were making decisions to be around low moral character people? You said you were older than your age. So were you always sort of like pushing the risk envelope?
Yeah, I would say so. Well, I mean, I was definitely in a bad place, like geographically, like I knew that. It was my best friend at the time's boyfriend, actually, and she wasn't there. It was a different group, and, just kind of brutal all around. I don't think that I was drinking excessively yet. Right. And so, yeah, kind of to answer my own question where I'm like, does anybody ever know? I mean, I went to like the rape crisis center after the trial. It ended up that the guy that raped me actually was also convicted of attempted murder. Like the following week, there was like a gang violence. Yeah. Like it was bad. It could have been real, real bad. And to be honest, like even through years of therapy and all of that stuff, I probably still haven't fully unpacked that. I think I just passed over that. And then that did trickle into like bad relationships, further drinking, further numbing. When I say I went all in, it was like, okay, now we're going to do balloons on a Tuesday night and be, what do they call it? Fished out or whatever. Or now I did, a lot of like drinking was always my thing. Drinking, a lot of drinking, 20 Miller Lights, 15 shots of Crown, I mean, I was it. Like I was hanging with the fellas, you know what I mean? But then it definitely turned into like there was ecstasy at times, or there was mushrooms or acid. And those were only a few times because of how I reacted, right? I mean, like it damn near killed me a couple times, or just like a lot of sorrow. And even in my early days of drinking, there was just a lot of crying and emotion. And so I guess at that time I had really just numbed what had happened to me for so long that probably continued forever. So so I had 2 drunk drivings. First one, kind of joked about it. I was like, I mean, really? Like I drink way more than that normally, I passed my friend at a stop sign and, I blew quite a bit. I don't remember what it was that time.
Were you the least drunk person in the group and that's why you were driving? Because that's how my friends and I decided who would drive.
No, I was probably the most drunk. I always was.
Oh.
Okay. I was like the social coordinator, right? It was like, hey guys, we're gonna go here and we're gonna do this and let's go. Like we always had to have a plan, and we can't miss out on anything. Let's go downtown. We'd go downtown at the college, and it was like my guy friends would be like, hey, I bet that my girl can drink a pint faster than your guy, and I'd win free drinks for us all. So no, I drove, and it was super stupid. I drove a lot of times really drunk before that, for sure. Terrible night vision. I'm lucky that I didn't kill somebody, but that time was kind of a joke, but it was an eye opener, right? I'm not going to say it wasn't, but then it turned into like, okay, listen, like then I was in my 20s, I was out at the bars. So then people just knew like they were going to have to pick me up because I would be blacked out. Like nobody should be driving with that girl. Right. And then probably 4 or 5 years later is when I got my second. And that was a Sunday, right? Sunday fun day. By this time,
Yeah, of course. It's Sunday fun day. Suicide Sunday was more like
Wisconsin. You
right.
go to the bar at noon. Jaeger bombs at the time. I used to drink like Absolute and tonic and Jaeger bomb. I mean, it was everything, you know. I think by that time I was doing a lot of cocaine. At first it was like I would do all the drugs, but I was very against cocaine. And then it quickly turned into like, hey, I shouldn't be against cocaine. Everybody's doing cocaine. I'm a bartender. I can make a lot more money. And if I do cocaine, I can drink more.
Did you stay away from it on moral grounds or like me? Oh, so like I was like you know, drinking and other side dishes, but you know, excessive. I knew by how cocaine was described that it would be the death of me. And I think that saved my life. Is never doing it until I like tried it once towards the end, and I was on so many things I couldn't feel it.
Oh yeah.
It saved my life that I was like, hold on a minute. It's that addictive. Okay. That's not good. And it's that expensive for this little time.
Well, that's the thing. It wasn't expensive for me because I was selling it.
Oh, you were selling it.
And this is the terrible part about it. I knew that I had the best cocaine. So it wasn't like that garbage that makes people really, really sick. It was like the good stuff. You didn't need a whole lot of it.
Yeah.
And it probably actually did keep me alive because it kept me from being completely comatose. So like that was the thing. It was like,
how's your liver?
Right.
Your liver's great. Okay.
Now. So yeah. So it turned into, after bad acid trips a couple times and whatever, no more of that. Ecstasy, you know, the last time I did that, it was terrible. No more of that. But a lot of cocaine, a lot of booze, and a lot of cocaine.
But you were high functioning. You were high functioning during this time.
Oh, I was super high functioning.
Right. And yeah. Okay. Tell me about your jobs. And like, you were like, no to the college. I'm making good money.
No to college, making good money. But right around 28, I was like, okay, I can't just bartend for life. I got to do something with my life. You know, I went to dental assisting school, lost a really, really great job that actually my grandparents kind of helped me get, which that was brutal because I was, you know, most of the time I was super high functioning, but sometimes I wasn't in bed till 4 a.m, or, you know, then I would still go to work, but how can you know what I'm saying? My brain is completely dead. I don't think I was probably doing cocaine then. Then I did have really great jobs, but I had really bad decisions in men. So it was always like, I always ended up with the bad boy or the one that never fell in love, but then lucky me, he would fall in love with me, but then it came with all of the drama. Right. And so now I have I was raped, and then I have boyfriends that oh, I'm the one
unavailable. Right.
I'm so in love, but when I go to work, he's with somebody else or, you know, whatever. And so that continued that, and, you know, just all of the things. And so then I met my now ex-husband,
current boyfriend,
current baby daddy, right? So we live in Florida. I'll get to this whole part. Ex-husband, we're back together. Great.
View.
Senor View, Mr. View. And so I met him. Actually, he came to Wisconsin it was called band camp. And what it was, a concert though. It's like Seven Dust and, you know, whatever. I was a promo girl for this clothing company that he was invested in, but so was the guy I was dating at the time. And, you know, he was like, oh, I've been looking all over the world for a girl like you. And da-da-da. I'm like, you don't even know me. What do you mean you've been looking for a girl like me? You know, so it totally blew him off. And then anyways, we basically ended up online dating. He was deployed and we had this super awesome romance and story, whatever. Anyways, he basically saved me, right? We went on a month-long trip in the middle of his deployment, and we decided we were going to get married, and I was going to move from Wisconsin to Virginia. And thank God, when I moved, we still drank. That's what we did. It's how we met. We drank, you know, we did do drugs, but not often. It was kind of like I moved to Virginia and I bought some blow and I was like, this is terrible. You know what I mean? Then it was the bad stuff that, you know, whatever. You never want to look like you're strung out, you know, I'm like, no, I'm good with that. So luckily that went to the wayside. And But I moved and he deployed, and we got engaged and he deployed, and we got married and he deployed, and we got pregnant and he deployed, and then we had our son and he didn't deploy. So me moving here meant that I was basically alone with my dog and the friends that I made. And so like, I still was kind of getting hammered at this little place that I was working at, but I had a really great job. So, then there was no drugs. I mean, I would get high here and there, marijuana, stuff like that. But, then by the time I had my son, that's when it really just was hitting hard in my head. Like, do I want to do this? Do I have control? When I had him and I was nursing, it was like, okay, well, I knew I never really wanted to take my kid to the tavern because that's how I grew up and that's how I became an alcoholic, right? But it was my first Mother's Day. I remember I was like, oh my gosh, well, I don't want to take him to a bar, but what can we do? Well, in Virginia, you go to the winery or the brewery.
Of course.
So the winery, and then I'm blacked out at the winery with my little baby. And that's when the guilt and the shame and all of those things really started hitting me hard. That's when I just had this battle, this ongoing battle. So then fast forward, drinking just was a part of our life, and then we ended up getting separated and just kind of newly divorced last November because of COVID. Everything was like held up, but it was about 2 years that we were apart. And that whole time that we were apart, I barely drank at all. Like not at all. I just really dove into my relationship with Christ. And I talked about it so much on social media. And I had so many other women and men that would reach out and share their stories of like, hey, thank you for being so honest. Like my wife just left me. My husband just left me. I can't control my drinking, da, 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 da. And like, that gives me the strength to stay sober, to like encourage these other people. Right. I would have a couple beers like on a Friday, but that was it. I was completely sober. No, not a lot of people know this actually. So this past December, I went to a Santa thing and I had my son and I had a couple Miller Lights, which normally I would never drink and drive, but I'm like, I can have a couple, like I know I'm okay there. Right. And I was roofied. And
Oh
so
my God.
all of a sudden the friend that I was with was completely gone, shot, like she was gone. And I ended up taking her kid also, her 3-year-old, with no car seat. I just knew that I had to get him out of there. All of a sudden at like 10:30 at night, I sat up in my bed and there was the 2 boys and I had no idea how we got there. And I drove them. And like, I was like, I can't do, like, how in the hell, like who gets roofied? Like what the hell happened? All this stuff. And so
What happened to your friend? She didn't go home with you?
I left her there.
She was happy doing her thing.
Yep.
Okay.
I just knew I had to get the kids out of there. I was like, my son will not see this, but clearly he had to have known. I mean, he's 8. He had to have known I'm out of my head. Like, so anyways, I didn't drink for 6 months. I had a drink here or there, but like really didn't drink at all for 6 months. In the meantime, just was called to want to move to Florida and like was on a FaceTime with my ex-husband. We were co-parenting, amazing. We both had grown so much. And on this FaceTime, it was literally God was like, well, why don't we just buy 1 house instead of 2? And I was even like, what? What? Where did that come from? God.
Did God sound like Morgan Freeman? Because that's what I imagine.
So, all right. Well, God sounded like me somehow, but I was like, what the hell just happened? But it's been amazing, but it's been difficult because he drinks or because we drank. And so there's been a couple of times where I'm like, yeah, I just don't know. Like before coming into this, I'm like, listen, I want you to know, like I am on this sober curious journey. I don't even think I want to drink anymore. But then it's like, okay, well, we could have a couple at dinner, and so that's kind of where we are, but we are doing Sober October right now. So
I love your rhyming names.
Sober October. It's like a Joe Rogan thing, right? I didn't even like
Sunday Fun Day. Yeah, you know what? I'm a fan of his. I haven't yet listened to his podcast. So.
Because they're 3 hours long.
Well, that's even now. I'm not going to even go there.
Yeah. I mean, he's great. In fact, I saw Joe Rogan just recently. He got COVID in Tampa and then beat it right and with ivermectin. Anyways, yeah. So kind of that was my story.
No, that's great. Yeah. So I love that you're on a sober curious journey, and I say that this is called positive recovery. I'm in recovery. I've got 18 and a half years, but the truth is, well, thank you. I was just gonna say, even the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous says there's different types of alcoholics. This isn't for everybody. This is for the spiritually bankrupt.
Yeah.
And that translated, it's like, you need something bigger than yourself. You've tried everything, every which way but Sunday. I'm that. Like, I tried to quit a million times. There's no way I could have done it alone. There's no other option for me. But you know what? Most people are like you. That so 30% of people have alcoholic history, alcoholic drinking. You clearly had alcoholic drinking. Yeah. And what happens is 30% sort of age out of it or hit milestones in life and kind of stop. That doesn't mean that they're sober. It means like they just, you know what, cocaine isn't for me. I could drink a couple. And, you know, people in AA don't want to hear that. But the truth is, like, it's in the big book, and not everybody in AA. I hate to categorize, you know, I hate to do that because there's people that kind of understand, but I need to go because I'll die otherwise. And so it's for me, but it's not for everybody. 30% of people kind of like, you get better with or without treatment, like without treatment mostly. And then 30% of people, no matter what they do, they relapse, they can't stay sober, and they go down.
And I think at the time, I've said this a million times, probably. At the time when I probably should have been seeking help, I just was like, everybody that I know, not everybody now, because I know successful people, right? But at the time, I'm like, everybody that I know that's gone to treatment has relapsed and almost come back 10 times harder, right? So for me, it was this whole thing of like, AA is not for me. Like, I'm very actually uneducated, to be honest, about AA and the full 12 steps and what the process is, because in my mind, I'm like, well, it didn't work for any of these other people. So I'm more stubborn, where it's like, I can do it on my own, where I should have. So another thing that I left out, and I talk to my sister about this all the time. My sister, you know, she moved in with me at one point. She saw it all. She would have to pick me up. Like it was a lot, you know. I wasn't out of control. Like, I wasn't in trouble. I wasn't whatever, but I mean, I did a lot of damage to myself. And she walked in one day, you know, to the guy I was living with's house, and she knew, you know, I thought people didn't know that I had a big cocaine problem, because at one point, you know, I was doing blow then just all day without even drinking.
Were you like 15 pounds?
No.
Oh, it didn't have that effect. Okay.
No, because again, it was good stuff.
Right. Okay.
And I don't know. I hate to say that. I hate to say that, but, and again, it wasn't a lot, but it just here and there throughout the day. It was almost like people that smoke weed, right? I just was like, okay, well,
yeah, it's a lot if you're doing it multiple times a day. I don't care.
Multiple times a day. Then she walked in the house one day and she was like crying, and she was like, I had a dream that you died. If you don't stop, you're going to die. And I didn't stop then still for quite a while. So that's when, you know, and I had to go to treatment when I had my second DUI. Oh, I left this part of the story out. This is great. So I get my second DUI. It was after the Sunday fun day, 12 hours of drinking, right? I'm going down the main street of my town, and I was going 12 miles an hour. Lucky that I could even figure out how to put my car in drive. No joke.
Were you stoned?
No, I was wasted drunk.
Oh, okay. Because usually if you're high, you think you're going faster than you are.
No, I was really gone. I mean, probably drinking Rumpelmans, Jaeger bombs. I mean, you name it. Everything.
If I ever want to vomit, I'm gonna call you and have you drink.
Seriously, I blew a 0.28, and so then I had to go to treatment, right? My lawyers, because of course, all my friends, we had like a citywide attorney, because it was, you know, like Chad, my husband, will say like, it's a rite of passage in Wisconsin. Like, well, how many do you have? You know, then you go to class and you have that little wheel, right? That's like, oh, well, this is how much you drink, and, you know, whatever. And I kind of, at the time, it was like a joke, because it said, you know, 0.28 for my weight. Should have meant that I had like 6 or 7 drinks. I'm like kind of giggling, and the person's like, what? And I'm like, this is probably how much I drank in the first hour. I was there for 12 hours.
Oh my God.
And they were like, what? You know, I mean, it was ridiculous how much I drank. So then I had to go to jail, because it was my second one, even though it was years in between. But I ended up, my attorney was going to get me on the bracelet, right? So it was like work release or whatever. Well, that weekend before I had to turn myself in, I was on a camping trip with my then boyfriend. I was like, well, we're at the cabin. We have to smoke weed. We're in the wilderness, right? And I was like, I'll just get one of those drinks that you drink. And then when they drop me, then I'll be clean. So I'll still be able to get out on the bracelet. It'll be great. Well,
It'll be great.
when I reported into jail, there was like a fight broke out. And so before they transported me to this, it's called the Huber Center, they had to put me in a different area of the jail, and they like forgot about me. So by the time they transferred me to jail, that drink that
You
I
had a
drank,
beard and it was like 8 years later.
yeah,
Right.
yeah, it was like forever. Well, the drink wore off. And so then when they dropped me, when I got to this other place, I was dirty. So I had to sit there for 12 days.
Nice. Good learning experience, eh?
12 days in jail. I have like the super ghetto girls that are like, oh, look at this. And I was like, not me. And they're like, oh, okay, you're cool. All right. You know, all jokes aside.
I know. I'm sorry. It's just.
No, I mean, I laugh about it all the time.
Okay.
Yeah. Like I sat in jail for 12 days, you know, like these are things that I'm like, God, hopefully I'll never have to tell my kid this, but you know, and
Isn't there a song about that? On the first day of jail.
I should figure out what it was. On the first day, I almost got beat up. On the second day, I made friends. On the third day, they were like doing something, their eyebrows or something.
Well,
I don't remember.
So what I love about your story is not that you have gone into this, but I know we want to hear about it. Is that okay? You've done shitty things. You've had bottom that a lot of us can identify with, and yet you're somebody who isn't pounding any one particular course or another. And I'm going to educate you just quickly on what AA is, but we're going to roll into next is like, how did you get to the place where you're like this awesome coach and so forth? So just briefly aside, so AA was founded by a dude who couldn't stay sober, and it had evolved from a Christian-based
Celebrate Recovery.
No. So that's today. Celebrate Recovery is like a scripture-based fellowship where like you get together in groups, churches, and then you fellowship, and then you go into whatever your thing is. Some people have Al-Anon, some people go to alcohol, some drugs, some sex, and then after you fellowship again, and it's great. It's not based on the 12 steps, it's based on scripture. But interestingly enough, the Oxford groups was a Christian-based teetotalers, whatever, I can never say it, sobriety movement that influenced Bill Wilson, who was the founder of AA. So there's a lot of Christianity in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous and the 12 steps. God's mentioned in 5 of the 12 steps. And, you know, as a Jew getting sober I went to an Episcopal high school, so I knew the Lord's Prayer, but like I say the Lord's Prayer a lot, I'm in churches a lot. So one of the influences was the Oxford group. So it would be familiar to you, but Celebrate Recovery is even more, you know, faith-based in terms of Christianity. William James, who is the father of American psychology, talks about transformative spiritual experiences. He was also an influencer, as was Carl Jung, like Sigmund Freud's sidekick for a while. You're sober curious, but your life's not unmanageable. You're not powerless right now of the decisions you make. How did you transform into this awesome, empowering coach that you are today? And like, what are the 3 businesses?
Okay, so when my son was born, the first thing that was most important to me is that we found a church. I grew up in the church. I did not know the word though. I like went to church with my family. My grandma was in the choir. My grandpa was the accountant. I knew how that felt like, right? It felt good to me to be in church and my family was all there and I was probably goofing around or whatever, but it was important to me that that was a foundation in our home. Through many different blackouts, even after having AJ, like it was God that always kind of pulled me through. And every time I'm in the word in the morning and have my morning routine, I'm so great. And then I notice when I start to falter from that, or when I go from having the 2 drinks to like, oh, I drank too much. It's like when I'm not actively in the word. But what happened was I still worked in the dental office when my son was born. He went to daycare for about 3 months and I was older when I had him. I was 34 and I didn't want him to learn all of the things from somebody else. It was like I waited my whole life. I always knew I had lost a child in my mid-20s through a bad season of my life. also on top of that. So that was another thing I probably never dealt with. But so it was like in my mind, I always knew, like, I know that I'm going to be a really good mom. And when I have a kid, I'm going to fight my hardest to make sure like that this kid, almost probably to fault, which, you know, like through our separation and divorce, we both grew so much and realized like, hey, the thing, you know, like this is what's important. And, you know, we do have to make some changes and, you know, whatever. And that's great. But I actually, my first dipping into being an entrepreneur is I did Beachbody. So I did this program and, you know, got into shape and all of the things. And then someone approached me to be on the team and I didn't know what that meant. And I said no for 6 months, but here's my son going to daycare for 11 hours a day. I worked 3 days a week, but 11 hours a day. And I was like, I can't do it. And so
what were you doing? What were you working as?
Dental assistant.
Okay.
So I was doing Invisalign and, you know, just all kinds of different things. I was basically running our office. I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And so it ended up some drama happened at work too. And it was just weird. They were like my best friends, but then all this crazy stuff happened and it was just like another God thing, I think. And so finally I said, okay, I'll do this thing. And I was like, I announced to the world, AKA Facebook, that I was going to do this thing. And I did it, and I did it really well. I grew really quickly. I was, you know, very involved with corporate and all of that stuff. And then I switched to a different thing. Just, I got more educated. I'm super crunchy, if you will. So like reading labels, and my son never gets juice, you know, like poor kid, no, but very, very holistic approach to everything. So I went on to be a holistic wellness and gut health specialist. And then I switched over to using adaptogenic herbs. And so I'm working a lot with kids with ADHD and sensory and things like that. A lot of moms with postpartum, a lot of autoimmune, like all of those things. And so then I became a certified fasting coach, which is the complete opposite of what Beachbody was. That was like calorie deficit. A lot of women ended up with hormone imbalance and adrenal fatigue and kind of like bad. And now I'm teaching women like, hey, look, I eat 2,000 calories a day, right? Like teaching them to eat enough, teaching them food freedom, because a lot of women have this terrible relationship with food. Like for some people it's food, some people it's alcohol, some people, you know, whatever. The food thing is very real too. They think that they are like this terrible eater. And what they realize is, although maybe you're making some bad decisions on what you're choosing to eat, you're not binge eating, you're starving. And so I'm able to like give these women a new freedom. Of course, they're losing weight and learning how to burn fat and all of these other things, but they're realizing like, oh, I haven't actually been, you know, like sabotaging myself, you know, maybe yes, with like the sugar and stuff like that. But
so I'm not familiar with what a fasting coach is, but it sounds in my head opposite of what you just said you did. And that is, hey, I eat 2,000 calories a day. That's not fasting to me. Fasting is 0. So
fasting just means you're going a longer period of time without eating.
Like intermittent fasting?
Intermittent fasting. But even more so importantly, in my it's a 6-week program that I offer. They're learning to eat enough. So they're learning to pair their HIIT workout days with a lower carb day, higher fat, but then the rest of the week on our strength days, we're eating mostly carbs. So it's just teaching them, like we say, we eat the right things at the right reasons for the right time. So it's a whole program. And then just recently in May, I started taking this collagen that I was going to debunk, and it ended up being really amazing. And so now I've added that to my plate as well. And it's been,
how long have you been on the collagen?
Just since the end of May.
Okay, because your picture, you're a very attractive woman. Your picture though looks older than what I'm looking at right now. You really, I wasn't sure I had the right person.
Yeah. So like my forehead lines are almost completely gone. My hair has never.
Oh, that's just Botox. Come on.
I've never done Botox.
Yeah. Okay.
That's what people started asking me. So I'm high up in my other company. And so this was another prayer thing of like, oh my gosh, do I add this? Are people going to be mad at me if I, you know, whatever. But then people started asking me, like literally, they're like, okay, did you get extensions? Like, how did your hair grow so fast? Okay, it's liquid collagen. So it's different than the other collagens out there. And they're like, okay, like a friend of mine sent a picture like from the side, and they're like, no, literally your forehead lines are gone. And I'm like, yeah, I know. And they're like, you didn't get Botox. I'm like, honest to God, I have never got Botox. I have never got filler. I don't have extensions. So I was doing well, and I'm now doing real well.
So why do you only help women? Because I need to be.
I don't only help women.
Okay.
So I work a lot with men also. I just like in most of my approach on social media is just a lot of empowerment and again, speaking the truth. And especially with the drinking, a lot of that is men that I talk to and work with. A lot of the herbs that I use help a lot of people with addiction also. But like my main message just like in general is, in my podcast, for instance, we're like, we want to help women, everybody, but we want to help women get unstuck. We want to,
right. And that's beautiful. Yeah. I love it. Yeah. Guys, if you haven't checked it out, what's your podcast called again?
Activate,
right? The K. Yeah. Oh, there it is. Okay. Right. I just followed the link from, I didn't even like look. I just said, okay, podcast open, click, play. Oh God, I'm not a woman. That one will work. All right. So, that's a beautiful story. I'm sure it's going to be awesome. Thank you. We're going to go to the lightning round where I just asked you.
I'm so nervous about this.
Okay. So, we'll just stick with some easy ones. So state of Wisconsin, Madison, what did they call the valedictorian from, Cheese Whiz?
Oh. Love it.
And then what do they call the person that graduates at the very bottom? Cheese dip.
Cheese dip. Oh my God, that's awesome.
Isn't that great, Daddy jokes?
I have to remember those.
Yeah.
I'm writing these down. Cheese whiz and cheese dip.
Yeah.
Am I supposed to know that? I feel like
no, I made that up in college. My girlfriend at the time was from Ohio. And
yeah.
And,
okay.
Yeah, I was very proud because usually I steal other people's stuff. Okay. So what's your favorite word?
Abundance.
What's your least favorite word?
Hate.
What's your favorite sound?
My son.
What's your least favorite sound?
Oh, I don't know if it's an actual sound, but doubt. Like speaking to other women or people or kids that doubt their potential.
Got it. Awesome. What vocation would you have loved to have had a go at? Let's say you can't do what you're doing now. What do you think in a fantasy world, what would you love doing?
Well, one of the things that I still am debating on doing is I was teaching spin in Virginia and I'm not now. So possibly having my own studio.
So what vocation would you loathe doing?
I mean, now that I'm in the position that I'm in, working for somebody else's dream.
Okay. Yeah. Dig it. Okay. So when you die, what words do you want to hear coming out of God's mouth?
I'm proud of you.
All right. Killer. Thank you very much. So what we do here at Positive Recovery MD's podcast is we end with a positive intervention. And okay, this is a good one. And it'll be your assignment.
Okay.
So it's not like we can process it, but this just means at some point we'll have to touch base again and then you'll tell me how this went. And I think I need to hire you because everything's my thing. Food was first. And I'm in shape if round is a shape. But it's not the kind of shape I want to be in. All right.
Well, so Chad walked in the room the other day. It was so awesome. And he's like, look, there's a hole in my stomach. And I said, no, that's an oblique.
Oh, he knows that if he's been in the army and all that.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is a great quote from Abraham Lincoln. Character is like a tree and reputation is like its shadow. The shadow is what we think of it. The tree is the real thing. So there's the idea you have of yourself. And then there's an image you portray to the world. People are often preoccupied with the shape and quality of their shadows and can lose themselves temporarily in trying to act in ways they think will get others to like them. Like the tree with its shadow, however, you don't have control over how others perceive you. In the short term, perhaps, others see only a distorted shadow, but over the long term, your true character shines through. Action shapes character and enhances overall well-being. The happiest people are those who embrace themselves for who they are and don't allow judgments about their shadows to distract them. So here's the assignment. Today's PI. This might feel a bit intimidating, but if you're up to the challenge, ask 3 people whom you feel safe with to describe the person they perceive you to be. Be mindful of the things they say that resonate as true and anything that seems surprising. Do these people see the character you see? At the close of the day, journal about your experience. So I think this is great. I'm gonna do it.
I'm not speechless very often, and that.
Okay, cool.
I love that.
Awesome. So yeah, we'll send you.
I'm going to ask everybody. Like, I'm going to put it on my social media.
Okay. All right. That's awesome. So yeah, look, I'm glad you're speechless. I think this has more days than not that'll make you pause. I hope you'll enjoy the book and do it with Chad.
Thank you so much.
Well, yeah. Thank you so much for being on. And if anybody wants to get in touch with you, which I'm sure they're motivated to do as I am, how do we get in touch with you?
So on social media, I'm Steph View, V as in Victor, IEAU. On Instagram, it's Steph_View.
Got it. And it's Aktivate with the K, and that's not Activator like the hair gel. It's Aktivate. Okay.
Activate your life. Yes.
That's right. I love it. Well, thanks again. And I hope we'll talk soon. Thank you for listening. I hope you guys had a good time. Take care of yourselves and take care of one another. With that, I'm signing off.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Positive Recovery MD. Don't forget to visit positiverecoverymd.com to sign up to get your daily positive intervention sent straight to your inbox. Be sure to subscribe to Positive Recovery MD on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to your podcast to receive an automatic download when a new episode drops. And as always, if you or someone you know needs help, visit positiverecovery.com or call 877-4-SOBRIETY, which is 877-476-2743. We are here to help.